We're back with another edition of What's Next Longevity Deal Talk. Thanks for tuning in. We have a great lineup waiting in the wings, and we'll get started right after this from Amber.
My name's Stuart Hamilton. I'm the CEO and founder here at Amber. We exist to help caregivers provide care more effectively and more efficiently than has ever been possible before. And the way that we do that is we deploy sensors into the homes and the residences of seniors, and we passively gather information as they go about their day, information about their health, their well-being, their safety, their activities, and in the background, the Amber platform analyzes that information and provides alerts and insights to your caregivers to make sure that they are able to deliver the very best care exactly when it's needed. For example, at night, we're gathering information about your residents as they sleep. We're measuring their heart rate, we're measuring their breathing. We detect if they get out of bed. If a resident is particularly vulnerable, we will let your caregivers know to go to their room and make sure they're okay, making sure they get to the bathroom successfully, they get that glass of water, and they get safely back into bed. We can detect if a resident needs a continence pad changing so that you don't need to be constantly waking residents all night long to check their continence pad. In the daytime, we're measuring exercise levels, we're measuring medication compliance, all of the things, all of the information that your residents need to keep everybody safe and well as efficiently and as effectively as is possible. The results speak for themselves. We have clients where we have delivered 60, 70, 80% reductions in falls, enormous reductions in hospitalizations, use of psychotropic drugs, improvements in medication compliance, and all at the same time as delivering increased efficiency. We would love to explore together how we could work with you to deliver these improvements to the efficiency and the effectiveness of your care provision. Please contact me at stu@amber.co or visit our website, amberhealth.com.
Stuart, I understand that there's a personal story attached to how this came about.
That's quite right, Fred. My background is engineering and computer science. And so when I was lucky enough that my father got old, I moved him to a senior living facility not far from my home. And I expected to discover a whole range of amazing technologies for me and his caregivers to help provide him with the best possible care. But I was really surprised that there were several different technologies that we could use to help him, but none of that technology communicated with each other. None of it was easy to use. None of it had the sort of user interface that I was experienced in using in other industries. So we created Amber initially in response to my need and my caregivers' needs to look after my father, and we've now turned it into a platform with tens of thousands of users doing exactly the same thing.
Well, congratulations. The site, once again, for more info is amberhealth.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. Wow, what an exciting time of year with Thanksgiving, the holiday season not far behind, and the government reopening. And now the What's Next Longevity Innovation Summit coming up in December. We'll have more about that a bit later.
The dates are December 15th through the 17th at the National Press Club in Washington. We encourage you to register today at WashingtonInnovationSummit.com. Mary, let's get started with our guest today. From the SCAN Foundation, Director of Impact Investments, Brendan Ahearn. Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Fred. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
From Stead Impact Ventures, Chief Marketing Officer, Dana Larson. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Fred. Hi, Mary.
And from CABHI and Baycrest Academy for Research and Education, President and Chief Scientist, Allison Sekuler. Hi, Allison.
Hey, Fred. Hey, Mary. Nice to be here.
Well, this is really a stellar lineup for our focus today on impact investing. This is going to be an important discussion. So, Brendan, let's turn to you first. Let's share with our audience just what impact investing is.
As anyone will tell you, there are many definitions with a lot of variation around return and impact expectations according to the institution. At the SCAN Foundation, we define it as investing to generate positive, measurable social impact alongside a financial return. We're flexible on the type of capital we deploy. It could be debt, equity, or real estate into funds, companies, or nonprofits, except we don't do publicly traded companies. And really what we center on is addressing the root challenges preventing older Americans from aging well.
And is it tied to the health plan, Scan Health?
Yeah, so we have a great relationship. We were actually spun out of the health plan in 2008, and we share a board with them. Half of our board members are also with the health plan. Our mission is a little bit more focused on the future of aging, 5 or 10 years down the line, whereas the health plan invests to improve the member experience and such. But we have a great relationship with them.
And you're just doing top tier work. So for our audience, talk a little bit about the SCAN Foundation and your focus on the target customer that you're focused on.
Sure. So we are a public foundation based in Long Beach, California, with that mission of helping all older Americans age well, specifically in home and community where most want to remain. Our work spans policy, advocacy, and impact investing. And we currently have a portfolio of 7 impact investments between 5 funds and 2 direct deals. And everything we do focuses on the health and social needs of older Americans from historically marginalized groups, including the dual eligibles across Medicare and Medicaid, people of color, and those living in rural areas.
And there's a lot of emphasis on the forgotten middle, correct?
Correct. Yep. There's that group. They are not quite wealthy enough to privately pay for services, but don't qualify for Medicaid either. And so we are very supportive of solutions that meet their needs.
Well, that's terrific, Brendan. Dana, let's fill everyone in on the Stead Impact Investments and maybe what it means to be an impact investor from your perspective.
Sure. So Stead Impact Ventures is a family office. And we were formed because the Stead family had decades of philanthropic giving. Our chair, Jerry Stead, was CEO of 10 public companies. And so what we did is we formalized an office to build on that commitment to philanthropic giving to move into the investment space, with the idea that if you concentrate your investments, whether they be grants or direct investments in innovative startups or advocacy work, that you're going to tackle problems much more effectively. So one of our big focuses is Alzheimer's disease. So we founded the Banner Alzheimer's Institute. We support the Alzheimer's Association from a philanthropic standpoint, and that informs our investments in startup companies that are in the diagnostics, the therapeutics, and the care space. And I would say that the only reason you might know our office is if you're a college football fan. The Stead Family Children's Hospital is at the University of Iowa. Yeah. And so at Hawkeye football games, everyone in Kinnick Stadium turns and waves to the kids at the Children's Hospital. So it's called the Wave. So some people who are college sports fans may be familiar with that.
That's so interesting. So you are deploying capital for nonprofit grants to nonprofits, as well as investing in startup companies that are mission aligned with the foundation.
Yeah, we find that to be very helpful because, again, like tackling these big problems like Alzheimer's as an example, require the disruption and innovation of startups, but also the long-term vision and commitment of nonprofits. And then there's also those synergies when you create that ecosystem, where if you have, let's say, a device innovation, for example, you can use the clinical experience of your nonprofits. You can use them for pilot programs. So those relationships that we've built up for decades with academic medical centers, for example, are really invaluable for our startup companies. And they learn from one another.
I was one who ran a nonprofit for 10 years, SeniorNet, and then for-profit venture-backed Third Age. So I've always understood the power of public-private partnerships, but in this impact investing area, that really comes to the fore. So Allison, let's turn to you and the work you're doing with CABHI in Toronto and the Baycrest Academy for Research and Education.
Yeah, so the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation, otherwise known as CABHI, was founded in 2015 which is, I think, where Mary, you and I first met. And we have, since that time, invested over $200 million in advancing innovations in this aging and brain health space, again, with that same sort of focus in neurodegenerative diseases, especially Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And the way that we work is, as an innovation catalyst. So we work in this particular space of aging and brain health, but across the entire innovation pipeline, from sort of early stage design and development through middle stage refining and validating in large scale settings, all the way through adoption and spread and scale of these solutions. And so we have supported almost 600 different projects during that time. We've engaged hundreds and hundreds of thousands of older individuals and caregivers, and helped companies, care homes and care providers procure, hundreds of solutions. And we've also helped to introduce about 285 different distinct solutions into the market and that have been adopted into practice. So one of the other things that we do is some of our work is non-dilutive. We may be funding students or scientists or clinicians or frontline care workers who don't yet have a company. We teach them to become entrepreneurs, and we go all the way through equity investments in companies. And, for that 200 million that we've invested, our companies that we've worked with and innovators we've worked with have acquired over $1 billion in follow-on funding. So it's been really exciting. And as people have said, the impact side of things, we've seen incredible impact from the innovations we've supported. But I do believe you can both do good and make money for folks.
Really important. So tell us your thoughts about impact investing and the opportunities it presents, and give some examples. And also, are there some partnerships that you're looking to create in the future? Because I think there is a movement overall globally toward alternate capital and alternate investments, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that our approach toward impact investing is, again, we are looking just in this one space of aging and brain health. We work across a number of different areas, though. So we think of it kind of broadly. So yes, aging at home. Yes, cognitive and mental health, care coordination, caregiver support. But we also fund programs in financial health and wellness, and in women's brain health and femtech, because those are specific sorts of areas that we feel like if you don't have a good plan for your will and for your financial security to be able to work later in life, if that's what you want to do, that also impacts your brain health. And we do know, Dana can speak much more to it. Alzheimer's is primarily affecting much more so women than men. So, and it's not just because they're living longer. So there are certain other issues that we're looking at. So we think about it in a broad way, but it does constrain what we're looking at funding, right? Because we really are focused in this one space. So it's not just about what company is out there in the world that's going to become a unicorn and make the most money. It's about what companies do we think have what it takes to be able to succeed. Yes, to bring in some funding that we can then reinvest in our nonprofit and our charitable work, but also will make a difference in the world. So we try to balance that a little bit. So we have an incredible return on investment, but it's in the context of what can we do to achieve Baycrest's vision, which is also CABHI's vision, of having a world where every older adult is living a life of purpose and fulfillment and dignity. So we do it by supporting entrepreneurship and innovators, and other groups within Baycrest take other aspects for their mission, but that's ultimately what the goal is. We co-invest with other venture funds. We work very closely, obviously, Mary, as you know, with folks like you who are experts in the area. I was just at the Leading Age conference, and there's a lot of interest in building the partnerships, not just in Canada but across the United States. And people should look out for some news on some of our brain bases that are opening, not just across Canada, but also in the United States. So we're always looking for partners.
I guess we can get along with Canadians. Look at that.
Yeah. I'm a dual citizen, so I don't know if that counts, but yeah.
I think we want to turn to each of you for some thoughts on the trends that you're seeing. It sounds pretty positive so far. Dana, why don't you go first here?
Sure. Well, Brendan being having a banking background can probably talk to this part more effectively, but I think it's really interesting how much impact investing has grown with the field being less than 30 years old. And again, Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but there's around 1.6 trillion in assets under management right now, according to the Global Impact Investing Network. So it's just tremendous growth. And one of the things we want to do as a family office is demonstrate to other family offices the power of impact investing. Historically, family offices have done a lot of work in the philanthropy space and have done some investments to protect generational wealth. But especially younger investors and family offices are really moving towards impact investing. They want to make a difference. And we want to inspire other family offices, demonstrate where we've been able to be effective and where we've made mistakes, so that this next generation of family offices can get really involved in the space. And so one of the trends we're seeing is more involvement from family offices. And then also, we're not a huge investor, but we've been able to build collaborative relationships with whether it's venture capitalists, whether it's family offices for deal flow and co-investments, so that we can make a bigger impact in the space. And further to what Allison was saying about making choices about where you invest, it really is about focus. And so within the areas that you're focused on, for us, neurodegenerative disorders and other aging-related issues, where is a specific area we can make a difference that no one else is investing in? And who can we bring along? And then measuring that, because yes, we need the financial return, but how are we measuring impact? And that's a whole other topic that I think is really important to make sure you're making a difference, because if you're not making a difference and not fulfilling your own mission, then you've got to pivot.
So Allison, your thoughts on trends you're seeing? That was a great answer. And I love the data. And we will program around that issue of impact and how you measure that.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Dana said. And one of the things, speaking now with my scientist hat on, is I think that there is a trend of more and more people being interested in supporting the companies in this aging and brain health space with a focus on dementia and aging for two reasons. One is that they're realizing the economic impact of this. If Alzheimer's disease or dementia were a country, it would have one of the larger GDPs in the world. It's already, the economic impact of dementia is already exceeding $1 trillion. So it's not quite NVIDIA level yet, but within the next few years, it's headed in that direction. And so we have to think about it not just as spending to address it, but it's really investing. And that comes side by side with the fact that we are seeing for the first time in decades more hope on the scientific side. So we have, drugs like lecanemab, which it was just approved recently in Canada. It's already been approved in the United States. Is it a cure? Absolutely not. But does it show that there are some things that we can do to at least slow the progression of the disease? In Alzheimer's, yes, there is movement there where we hadn't seen it before. And I think it's also being recognized that just because your grandmother or your mother or father had dementia doesn't mean that you will end up with dementia. There's so much we can do for prevention, changing our lifestyle, which is what our Defy Dementia program is all about. And so we're seeing, in terms of trends, much more emphasis on this prevention side and the early detection side. And that's changed the way we've been doing investing. Instead of just focused on, as we were initially, on technology to support people living with dementia, we still do that, but we're also looking at earlier stage kinds of biotech that is looking more at this prevention and early detection side, because if you can detect it early enough, it looks like you will increasingly be able to put interventions in place to slow the progression of the disease. So I'm really excited about the future here, and all of my colleagues on the scientific side and the clinical side. I think we're more optimistic than we have been in decades. We're not where we need to be, but we're getting there.
I do want to have you say something about an investment. So is ReadySpec an example of that?
Yeah, ReadySpec is a wonderful company, homegrown in Toronto, which is looking at using, the other thing is actually the intersection of artificial intelligence and how quickly that's advancing with some of the science. So ReadySpec uses different kinds of AI models to look in the back of the eye, and it can see someone is headed toward Alzheimer's well before they have any cognitive decline. And it can be integrated into optometrists' offices and so on and so forth. So like it has that's just one example, right? And so, Darmian is another that we've supported in the past, doing early detection using MRI. And now with things like hyperfine and portable MRI, you've got both the sort of the software solution and you're having increasingly the hardware solution. So I just feel like all the different factors are coming together at the same time.
Brandon, tell us what you think.
Yeah, so I think building on what Allison and Dean are saying, I think we're seeing more capital flow into spaces relevant to aging populations and not being afraid to take on some of the biggest challenges we're facing. So one trend and opportunity is the tremendous unmet need around caregiving. I believe we currently have a shortage of around 1.8 million trained caregivers, driven by low pay, inadequate training, burnout. And so we're seeing unpaid family caregivers step up to fill those roles. You may have heard of the so-called sandwich generation, where folks caring for both their own children and their adult parents, with all the emotional and financial stress this brings. Fortunately, we are seeing innovation in this area. There are a number of venture impact funds that have actually identified the care economy as one of their leading themes. These include Pivotal Ventures, Magnify Ventures, Foreground, Steel Sky, really diverse VCs led by non-traditional investors, excellent backgrounds, who are making investments along the care continuum. And one I'll spotlight that TSF recently invested in is a company called Suite, which is an AI-powered platform for care navigation that connects community health workers with the communities who need their services. And so we recently invested in their Series A round with a couple of other impact investors, including Acumen America and Rock Health, to help that company scale and reach more people.
Yeah, if I can just add really quickly on that, because caregiving is one of CABHI's areas of focus. And it just highlights again back on what was discussed around the different stages that you can invest in. Like we've invested in Tralto, which is very helpful in advancing, care training. A company, it's doing quite well, but we also have invested in nonprofit free sorts of resources like iGeriCare, which is a free training program for anyone who wants to use it to learn about, if you're a family caregiver, what should you be expecting and so on. So we would take the profits, for example, that we might be getting from some of our company investments and then putting them back into these sort of free resources and programs that we can provide to other folks.
Well, that's a perfect lead in to what's next here, Allison. Does a focus on social impact, changing the world, doing good, mean less of a focus on returns on investments? So I'll let you each weigh in here. And since you're on screen, Allison, you can go.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think necessarily, as I said before, I think it is quite possible to do good and make money. And then we use the money that we make to do more good. So for us, it's sort of a cycle. We have, as part of our mission, because we are a nonprofit, I mean, we're looking at, should we be starting a formal venture fund? That would be a separate sort of for-profit. But as a nonprofit, we are required to be invested, and a charity also, we're required to be doing that work. So we're taking any kind of investments, and it's really feeding back into our core mission. But if we don't make the right investments, if they're not giving us the right kind of return, that's not a sustainable model. So, we've had very, very, good fortune, a great due diligence process, and knowing the whole field, working with folks like Mary and all of our friends in various venture funds. We have a good eye on what's happening. So I think you don't have to, it's not an either or. You can absolutely do good and have the funding coming in and return on those investments.
Brendan, your thoughts?
Sure. Now, similarly for us, impact and returns go hand in hand. We can actually only make market rate investments. This is because we invest out of our net assets or endowment. And so really our impact investing shares in the fiduciary duty towards the foundation. That said, I think there's a spectrum of returns expectations, and there is a place for what I'd call impact first capital, which is sort of concessionary, can take the form of a low interest loan for example. And we've seen some important investments that maybe aren't ready to scale. It's a great idea, and it needs that type of approach. Actually, one of our impact investments, Dandelion Health, which looks at clinical AI to mitigate bias against marginalized populations, began as a grant. And so that allowed us to assess the team and the model before making an investment.
That's an amazing team too.
Dana, you want to pick up on this?
Yeah, I would reiterate that we are also looking at a kind of a relationship between profitability and philanthropy. But that said, we also make impact first investments. But that's again where measurement is really important, because we invest currently in a lot of early stage companies. And so we look at what is the probability of path to profitability, and what is the potential impact, and then continue to measure that. And one may outweigh the other, whether it's impact first or financial first, but still making an impact. And for us, the biggest test is the overall health of the portfolio.
Dana, do you want to say something about LB and your excitement in working on that?
Yeah, so this is also a caregiving app. It's called LB, ELBI. And it's called LB because it's named after our Chief Clinical Officer, Linda Buscemi, LB, her initials. And it was born out of a product that was first deployed in senior living communities and validated in senior living communities. And what the original goal of that first product is to reduce negative incidences between paid caregivers and residents, so that better outcomes for the residents and better retention of workers. But that evolved into addressing what our huge need is for family caregivers, right? Untrained, unpaid family caregivers in that sandwich generation that Brendan was talking about. And that's a generation that wants to get their information in a different way than previous generations. So this is a large language model, generative AI product that interacts with you and is personalized both to the needs of the caregiver and the patient. So we're really excited about it. It's an early stage product right now, but you can try it out for free on asklb.com and give us your feedback.
Well, this is all so exciting. I wish we could keep this conversation going. Maybe for each of you once again, and for our audience, what should we know about the ecosystem of social impact investing, and how you work with partners, nonprofits, and perhaps other social impact investors? And if you had a wish list for 2026, what new partner do you want at the table? Because Dana, I've been chasing family offices for years, and I'm so thrilled to have you at the table here. And so I think there's a need to bring this together. But I've seen examples of people going to their bank, to the family office, and saying, my parent has dementia. I'd like to do something. I don't know what to do. So how can we build and grow this ecosystem? So who wants to take that first? What should we know about the ecosystem, and how are you thinking about building it?
I'm happy to jump in there. Yeah. So I think the first, maybe the most surprising thing to outsiders is this is a diverse group. Virtually all kinds of asset managers have made impact investments, from foundations and universities investing out of their endowments to venture firms focused on impact, to family offices that we've talked about, and even angel investors who are really investing out of their own pocket in new models they believe in. We've found it helpful to partner with other impact investors in several ways. First and foremost, around sourcing and due diligence. Frankly, many of our best deals come from partners who know us well and that we can invest with. And we try to return the favor by sharing our diligence to help really grow the field and bring others into impact investing. Second, we obviously co-invest with our partners. And frankly, as a foundation, our checks can be a bit smaller than, say, a venture equity fund. And so we found we have more influence when we go in with like-minded co-investors. And finally, part of our theory of change is actually working with impact fund managers, because we invest in both funds and companies, to help them do more with older Americans. And really, we call this making a market for aging lens investing. And it's, getting some traction. We're not the only ones out there. Certainly everyone on this call is part of that group. But we've started working with funds such as Jobs for the Future Ventures. That's a workforce development fund for lower income Americans. Resilience VC, that's a venture fintech fund who want to do more with older Americans, can benefit from our in-house policy expertise. And we think that's an interesting and novel way to deploy capital into relevant companies.
And what check size are you talking about? So
we do on direct deals, it tends to be 500K to 750 is our sweet spot. We go a bit larger for funds. And Mary, to your question, wish list, if I could see one thing in 2026, I think it would be even more cooperation among the aging philanthropies, several of whom are thinking about impact investing, carve-outs, whether they should do an in-house team, whether they should use consultants, but finding even more ways to combine forces and look at deals together, which is something we've already started.
And we'll take that as a call to action to make that part of our venture conference programming in June. But this is really important. So Dana, what the check size? And then why don't you take a stab at the question?
Yeah, again, we're a family office, so smaller than some of the other investments. Our typical investment over time is, less than 10 million, usually greater than 2, so somewhere in there. And what I would say in terms of, like you were saying, Mary, surfacing family offices that could be a fit, we're trying to join collectives and start collectives around certain investment opportunities. And one of the collectives we've joined is the Future Mental Health Collective. And that's a fantastic collaborative space of not only family offices, but other mission-aligned impact investors in the mental health space. Loneliness certainly being a big piece of that. And so that's a way not only for us to find co-investment opportunities and deal flow, but I think it's also a place for entrepreneurs to find investors who might be a good fit.
It's a really important point. There's a lot of interest in that topic area. And then Allison, for you, you've had a global footprint. I follow you around the globe. Where is Allison today?
Today I'm in Hamilton, Ontario.
You and Mel and your team have done a great job of Japan, Korea. You've been in very many global women's groups. I know the longevity conference is happening this week in the Middle East. I mean, it's every single week there's a conference.
Yeah.
In fact, our clients say to us, we're going to be at leading age. No, we're at health. Find everybody at health that should meet with us. That's what's happening in our world. But on the leading age side, I know that some of those senior housing groups also co-invest. So it's important to know who those groups are.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think that, you look at sort of the approach Ziegler's taken in the past and bringing in some of those senior living groups. And I think there's a huge capacity for that. And again, recognizing that they can be doing two things at the same time. They can be improving the care of the folks who live in their residences and also improving the workforce demands and training. But they can also be making more money to be investing. So it's like my wish really is that people stop thinking about support for older adults as spending and start to think of it more as investing, because that's how we're thinking about it. We're thinking about what can we do to build this brain economy, which will help to power every aspect of our world, right? And so that's what I have really on my brain right now.
Thank you, Allison, Dana, and Brendan. Really appreciate you taking the time with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We knew this would be a great discussion, Mary.
Yes, it was great. And we promise everyone more information on the What's Next Longevity Summit. And here's more information about that.
The What's Next Longevity Innovation Summit is coming up soon, December 15th to the 17th at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Now, more than ever, it's time to connect with other thought leaders in the longevity ecosystem. Here's a taste of why you don't want to miss it.
You're in for, I would say, the Disneyland of the longevity market, because you're going to hear lots of ideas, lots of data.
So I'm Todd Heim. I serve two roles at National Institute on Aging. I'm the senior advisor to the NIA director on innovation, as well as I oversee an office that coordinates all of our training, career development, and seed funding programs.
Today is a important day for AARP. We are releasing the much anticipated annual Tech Trends study today.
We've worked on caregiving for a number of years. We'll probably talk more about that later. If you look at what's happened over the last year, you can say that we did put family caregivers on the public policy map. That was the work of a lot of organizations.
You know, right now we talk about it as just caregiving, but I think eventually even much more critical healthcare is going to start moving back into the home. I think you're going to have a shift away from hospitals into care delivery into the home.
Hi everybody, Greg Olson. I'm the director of the New York State Office for Aging. We've employed 28 public-private partnerships with tech and AI companies serving 1 million more people.
So we launched Get Set Up a little over 4.5 years ago, and it was 3 months prior to the pandemic. And as you can imagine, you know, the demographic that we all serve here was more impacted than any other.
This year, our focus is on the next care transformation. For those in the longevity ecosystem, you can't afford not to be there. Register today at WashingtonInnovationSummit.com.
Congratulations on the really important work you're doing. This has been a great discussion. I wish we could go out to lunch and continue it for the afternoon. I really hope to see all of you at our Innovation Summit in Washington, D.C. The agenda is amazing, and the opportunities to network are always so valuable. We will have a session on behavioral health and special needs populations, and I think 35 states now have initiatives around funding in this category. So age tech and meeting the needs of the intellectually disabled population kind of coming together. So if you have portfolio companies looking for funding and want to be in the pitch room, we have a few more openings, and then we have a few more tickets open. But once again, we're going to sell out in DC. So try to join us there. And again, let's grow this whole world of impact investing and help each other.
For more on the upcoming summit, visit WashingtonInnovationSummit.com. Thank you once again, Allison, Dana, and Brendan, for joining us today. And thank you as well to our sponsor for this episode, AMBA, providing technology to enable responsive, personalized, and effective care. Discover how AMBA can benefit your facility, your residents, their families, and caregivers. Find more at ambahealth.com. We want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch or listen. Remember, you can always find us and the Living Longer, Better, Smarter podcast as well at maryfurlong.com/podcast.